taking notes from nobody.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Hold on, Seamus. Give me a second. Still catching my breath from that game winner. Because that was unbelievable. It was a game of runs. That's playoff basketball. As you can see, I wasn't at the game. I just lost my voice. The Boston Celtics overcome a fourth quarter 15-2 run. They had a 15. To start that fourth quarter, Seamus, when Brooklyn went on that 15-2 run, excuse my French to the folks at home, but I said, oh shit, here we go again. Here we go again. But then the Celtics stayed with the course. Seamus, I saw you ran about a mile behind your house. What's your reaction? As you can tell, my voice is gone.
Mine might be gone too. This is one of those games we're going to look back at in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and we're going to remember it vividly.
Right.
Because this was a moment in time. This was an incredible game all throughout. In the first half alone, there were 17 or 18 lead changes in the first half. And then you combine that with the fact the Celtics grabbed a 15-point lead in the third quarter, then subsequently blew it to not only the Nets, but Kyrie Irving mainly. Our guy, who used to be our guy, now our enemy. He was torching the Celtics in the fourth quarter. And to end that game off the way we did, getting a stop on Kevin Durant, getting a stop on Kyrie, the Celtics double-teamed Kyrie on that last possession. Then Tatum went one-on-one with Durant at the top of the key, locked him up, forced him into a tough shot. And then that led to the game winner on the other end of the floor. Ball moved around. Marcus Smart, the old Marcus Smart, we talked about this many times, maybe would have taken that shot, maybe would have taken that three. Two guys closed out on him. Instead, he drives to the rim, makes the perfect play, perfect pass to Tatum. Tatum lays it in for the game winner. I just can't imagine a more perfect inning. I really can't. Yeah. The stop on Kyrie, the stop on Durant, the extra pass by Marcus Smart, the drive and the extra pass by Marcus Smart to the game winner. Not only was it a game winner, Tatum laid it in on Kyrie.
Yeah.
He laid it in on Kyrie.
Yeah.
This is only game one. I don't want to get too overhyped about it. We got to win 3 more games in this series. It's going to be a tough road. The Nets, they know they can compete with the Celtics now, especially Kyrie and Kevin Durant. But this win was invigorating. At one point, we thought this was the 2021 Celtics. We thought, well, what is going on here? We're blowing a lead late. We're scoring 4 points in the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. What's going on? And yet the team pulled through. They overcame adversity just like every single championship team before them did in the playoffs. At some point, the Celtics are going to have to do it over and over and over again throughout the playoffs if they want to go and win a ring. And this was just the beginning, and it felt so good. It felt so good.
And this is one of those games where, Rob and I, we recorded a podcast, and we talked about what we talked about is a big topic of it was, Seamus, is jumping on early, right? Getting an early game one win, right? Last year, you didn't have home court advantage. It was tough. And you were the 7th seed. You just had a horrible year. But this year, you have home court advantage. Maybe you got some fresh legs, but at the same time, it might be a little disadvantage because Brooklyn has played. They played that playing game just a couple of days ago as opposed to Boston. They haven't played since Memphis. But Bruce Brown makes his comments. They plaster it up on the Jumbotron. And the 35-year-old Al Horford comes out and drops a 20 and 15 game on 8 of 13 shooting. As you said, it is only game one, so we can't, get all cocky, but we can get excited and we can kind of dive into this a little bit. How huge is that to see in a 20 and 15 Al Horford game, Seamus?
Well, I said it at halftime. It's going to be huge for him to step up in the series. And not only him, but Daniel Tice and Grant Williams as well. Late in game, the Nets went smaller, or I guess you could say smaller, but they went a little bit more versatile, I think would be the better word, with Nicholas Claxton out there. But you saw earlier in the game, Andre Drummond was
Yeah.
absolutely dominating us down low. And without Robert Williams, all of our bigs are going to have to step up. And Al Horford came in today. I said on my halftime live, this is 25-year-old Al Horford. He's not 35.
Right.
And not only that, too, but you got to think about Al Horford. This could be his last chance at a ring. If the Celtics decide to go a different direction this summer, which, of course, it's still up in the air depending on what happens in this year's playoffs, if they decide to go a different route, Al Horford, this could be his last chance at a ring. And the fact he's playing at this level right now, that is exactly what you want to see out of Al at this stage in the playoffs. And you mentioned home court advantage, too, and keeping it. If the Celtics would have lost this game, who knows what would have happened going into the future? Because not only did they lose this game, or would they have lost this game if they, of course, Tatum didn't make that last shot, they would have held the burden of, you had a 15-point lead, you held the game, you had control of the game going into the fourth quarter, and you absolutely blew it. And not only did they blow it to Kyrie Irving.
I know. Kyrie was mocking the crowd too.
It's the worst possible scenario out there. You blow a game to Kyrie Irving. That would have been lingering over the team for the entire weekend. And for a road team to steal home court advantage, that is so huge, especially in a game one. So the Celtics, their ability to keep home court advantage in this series, they have to do it again in game two. Ideally, you want to win every game, of course, in the series. They're going to try to. But game two, they have to come out and play early like they did today and finish the game out, because Kyrie Irving had an amazing game. Didn't start out too well. Kevin Durant, same thing. Did not start out too well. Did not play well throughout the game, I thought. Well, up to his standards, of course. So the Celtics, they're going to have to be prepared for game two. But winning this game was so huge in the sense, if they fell apart, who knows where the storylines go, and who knows what this team is thinking, and who knows what is on their mind going into game two, a game that they still absolutely need to win.
Can I ask you something? And I don't want to complain because we won the game, but isn't it kind of like the officials, Seamus? I don't want to complain too much because we won the game, but it was on both sides tonight. Like there were even some questionable calls that were called against Brooklyn. I thought playoffs are supposed to be physical. Now, some of them were fouls. I 100%, and I'm no referee myself. I'm just a fan at home. But for a playoff game, in a close game, I know Boston had a 15-point lead, Seamus, but this was clearly a game of runs. We knew that the game was far from over. Are you kind of concerned going into game 2 through 7 and potentially all the way to the NBA Finals that this is going to continue? Because it's happening in all these series.
Well, it depends on the officials officiating the game and what emphasis they want to put on certain calls. Tonight, the first half, there were just a lot of whistles. A lot of whistles. They shot 31 free throws between the two teams. 31 free throws in the first half. It was hard to watch at times where the whistle is just being blown every other play. However, in the second half, I thought they let them play a little bit more. The whole game was absolutely physical, and that is exactly what you expect out of a playoff game, especially of this magnitude, the superstar power that is going head-to-head here, not only with the Stars, but the team as well. Just two really good teams in the Eastern Conference. But moving forward, I would like to see more consistency within calls overall. They felt lopsided at times, especially in the fourth quarter where, say Jaylen Brown, he got hit in the face trying to steal a ball. That wasn't called. And then all of a sudden on the other end, Nicholas Claxton's going to the hoop, barely gets touched, and he gets the foul call. And that was going both ways, I would say. So I don't want to say that it was a disadvantage for the Celtics entirely, but I will say the consistency in terms of the ticky-tack calls being called and then just the hard, physical plays, those weren't called. There's got to be a little bit more consistency there throughout the series. But if this game or this second half specifically is any indication for what we're going to see the rest of the series, I think they're going to let them play overall, the officials. The first half, no one wants to see that. No one wants to see a million whistles. No one wants to see a ref show. No one wants to see Scott Foster and Tony Brothers refereeing these games. Yet we're probably going to see him. If we get to a game 6, say somebody's 3-2 lead, I guarantee you Scott Foster or Tony Brothers will be on that game, and we'll be going to a game 7. But this is just something that we have to deal with every year, and people are going to complain about it, and people are going to talk about it. But, these guys, I will say at the end of the day, referees, their job pretty hard. They have to pay attention to everything. So you just hope moving forward there's just more consistency out of them overall.
Right, and that's what it is, and I really credit Boston. Not only were they trying to defend a 15-2 run by Brooklyn in the fourth quarter, but also, Brown gets hit. He's gushing blood. They can't stop the blood. Boston was able to fight through all of that. I don't think there were any technical fouls given to either team tonight. So credit the players for sticking in the game and coming down the course of the regular season, Seamus, most notably in that Miami game, the Celtics lost that game mentally. They lost it mentally more than physically. I mean, they complained about a lot of the calls. They let the calls get to them. Tonight, that wasn't really the case, and the Celtics were able to pull this one out. And I wanted to mention this while you were giving your thoughts on the game earlier on the in the program, but credit Ime Udoka for not calling a timeout that last play because Boston got a huge stop and they had the momentum. They had numbers. Bobbled a little bit on the offensive end, but great job not calling a timeout there by Udoka and letting his guy. That shows a lot of trust in his guys on both ends of the floor. And I don't know how much more I can really say about this win. I love how physical and aggressive Jaylen Brown was tonight. He wasn't settling for a lot of shots. He was getting to the basket. He was attacking downhill. I still think he is one of the best players in transition. Seamus, when he has the ball in his hands. Marcus Smart, like you said, if this was the old Marcus Smart, he probably would have taken about 15 shots down the clutch. But he was able to move the ball around, find the right man at the right time. The first half, Jason Tatum had 7 of 8 assists, and the Celtics were shooting 7 of 10 on shots assisted by Tatum or passed by Tatum. I mean, not the prettiest win, Seamus, but to kick out the series to kind of make a statement win. This was huge. Like you said, you got to take care of home court.
Yeah, and also just look at the team and how they reacted down the stretch.
Right.
This is an experienced club. The Celtics, you just think about the players that are on this ball team right now. Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They've been through playoff runs together before, and they are the core of the team currently. And that is part of the reason why the Celtics, people are picking them to go to the finals, not just Celtics fans. There are people around the NBA who are saying, hey, the Celtics, they're one of the best teams in the East. I think they're going to the finals. And right now, the reason for that is not only, they're playing tremendously, but they have the experience, like you talked about, of, yes, they can get, overwhelmed by some calls at times. We saw that a lot during the regular season, but right now it feels like they're locking in to a certain level where the calls aren't necessarily getting to them. The ref isn't getting to them. We'll see how it progresses as the series goes on. But particularly in this game one, it definitely felt like they were more locked into what they were doing, especially down the stretch where the Celtics, they could have easily been rattled many times. They lost a 15-point lead. They only scored 4 points in the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. They could have easily been rattled in this game. Right. They were down late as well. I believe it was 107 to 102 at one point. And at that point, you're looking at it going, here we go. Like the Nets could really pull away here. And the Celtics, they hit a couple of big shots down the stretch, a couple of big threes, and a couple of big shots at the rim, going to the rim. You mentioned it, Jaylen Brown, super aggressive, especially down the stretch as well. And all those plays, them overcoming the adversity and them being resilient in that way, overcoming all of those Kyrie daggers. I mean, how many daggers did Kyrie have in the fourth quarter? 5? It felt like he had more than 5. Right. And so their ability to do that, the Celtics' ability to do that versus in the past, say back in the bubble in 2020 when we faltered against the Heat, or back in 2018 when we faltered against the Cavs in the conference finals. Now this club is a little bit more experienced, and down the stretch, I don't feel like, we're the intimidated team. I don't feel as if we fear the other team. I said on here, we are the feared. Right. In this game, of course, we have many more games to go in the series, and I don't expect us to win every game and just sweep them. But this game was an indication that, hey, the Celtics, they're here and they're not going to go away, just because of a couple of Kyrie daggers or a comeback late in the fourth. So moving forward, the Celtics, if they can keep that resiliency, keep that ability to overcome this mass adversity, especially going on the road to moving forward, that's going to be big moving forward.
I just want to kind of give. I know we kind of gave Al Horford his flowers earlier, but I want to give him more flowers because there were possessions where he matched up against Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant struggled big time because of Al Horford's defense. So, I know he was the only one defending out there. The Celtics, I think. Oh, did they force 7 or 8 first quarter turnovers to Brooklyn? Boston came out offensively flat, but defensively came out stifling. And but I wanted to give, especially down the stretch, Al Horford credit on Kevin Durant on some possessions. Just do what he had to do, and then Jaylen Brown. I loved when Jaylen Brown wasn't even in the picture. He was like half court, and Bruce Brown was going up for a layup, and he just smacked it right off the back of the backboard. Um, those are the types of efforts that win you a basketball game, especially in the playoffs, right? To making those big momentum plays, whether it's stopping Kevin Durant from his free throw jump shot, which he seems to never miss, or it's blocking a Bruce Brown. Like, it's the little things. And then down the stretch, Jaylen Brown had a block on Kevin Durant as well. Like, it's the little things that really hype you up and really bring the crowd's energy. Peyton Pritchard came in. I know he had a fairly quiet night, but I think he played like 8 minutes, but he came in, he hit a big 3-pointer. You're telling me that didn't give that kid confidence? That was probably amazing. That was probably a great feeling for him from head to toe. He probably had chills. I mean, that's huge. But like you said, this series is far from over. This was by not a dominating win. But if we remember 3 years ago when we played Milwaukee, we had a dominating win to start the series off. We felt okay. And then we got our asses swept. So, we're not going to run our mouths too much because, respect the opponent. Brooklyn is one hell of a team. I understand we're not fond of Kyrie Irving, but you got to give him his flowers too. Because like you said, Seamus, there were so many shots down the stretch where you said, oh my God, he just put us away. Then next possession, oh my God, okay, now he put us away. No, now he put us, you know what I mean? It's just ongoing. I do think the Garden crowd's getting into his head a little bit. I know Kyrie was kind of flourishing in that fourth quarter, but the whole, he's sitting on the sidelines crying and doing all that, like, that just shows like we are in your head. Does it not?
Yeah. I mean, he had that little moment. I guess he was walking to the locker room at halftime, and some fans were heckling him in the hallway, and he did the whole "suck my dick" thing again. Where I for some reason thought about that this morning. I was like, Kyrie a couple of years ago, didn't he say "suck my dick" to a Philly fan? Like,
yeah, he did.
Yeah, it was this what. That was like the second, third game of the 2018. That was the second or third game as a Celtic.
I think we went on like a
LeBron.
Didn't we go on like a 16-game win streak after that?
Yeah. Yes, we did. That was the suck my dick Celtics, as I remember.
So hopefully it's not going to be the SMD Nets after that. After this, hopefully they don't go on to win 16 straight games because that'll get them a championship. But what are your expectations for Game 2? Game 1 was down to the wire. I know Boston had a 15-point lead, Seamus, but in all honesty, in my opinion, I wasn't praying, obviously, for a Celtic downfall, but you kind of figured, like, this is a game of runs. These two, Mike Breen mentioned it, have championship aspirations, but in reality, one of these two teams is going home in the first round. What are your expectations? Maybe what are your wants and needs going into Game 2?
Well, going forward, number one, I would expect Kevin Durant to have a much better game in Game 2, and just moving forward in general tonight, he was stifled a little bit, didn't seem to have his rhythm. But Kevin Durant, he's the best player in basketball. Is the second best player behind Giannis or Jokic or whoever. He could win MVP every season. He's becoming that LeBron level player where you see him on the court and you go, uh-oh, this guy's out here. So I'd expect Kevin Durant to be better moving forward. And that shouldn't worry Celtics fans because other parts of the Nets stepped up tonight, like we saw Kyrie Irving, we just talked about, in the fourth quarter. And, of course, in the first half, Goran Dragic, and even going into the second half, Goran Dragic was huge for them off the bench tonight. And maybe that doesn't continue throughout the series. But also, going forward, the Celtics, they have to get to the loose balls. I thought they were giving consistent effort all game, and they were getting after it defensively. But some of the loose balls that they created themselves, or some of the stops they created themselves where a ball bounced off the rim, bounced off of someone's hand, they just weren't getting to those balls as much as the Nets. And the Nets, I felt, especially in the first half, they had a lot of those opportunities where they grabbed the loose ball and they just had a guy wide open down low, whether it was Andre Drummond, Nick Claxton, whomever down there, and they were just creating easy opportunities. Early in the game, it felt like we should have had a 10-plus point lead because of how many turnovers we were creating. Yet the Nets, they continuously saw those easy opportunities at the rim, and that's why they were able to, be in this game early as they were. And also moving forward as well for the Celtics, offensively, we want to see more of Tatum down the stretch, a little bit more of Tatum. I felt there was just a little lack of Tatum. I know he made the game winner, and that was a pass from Marcus Smart. Down the stretch, you want to see it in Tatum's hands just a little bit more. There was a lot of Marcus Smart, a lot of Derek White, a lot of those playmakers, of course, but you just want to see it in Tatum's hands just a tad bit more down the stretch. Nothing crazy, but a tad bit more down the stretch. And those are really the three key areas I see moving forward for the Celtics and, what is going to change throughout this series, because ultimately I don't expect every game to be down to the wire. I expect the Nets to come out and not necessarily whoop us one game, but come out and grab a game handily. I expect us to come out and grab a game handily. So moving forward in this series, it's just going to be an up and down roller coaster of where it goes, unless the Celtics somehow this was some sort of turning point where they blow out the Nets in this series, which that would be ideal, but I don't expect it moving forward.
What's your prediction, by the way? I've been saying Celtics in 6. Oh, some people are saying Celtics in 4, Celtics in 5, or Nets in 4, Nets in 5. I don't see a scenario where this series in either favor doesn't at least go 6 or 7 games. That's
I
just
think
how
it
I
has
view
to
it.
go. I said yesterday as a joke, I said, Celtics in 4, or I said Celtics in 5, if not 4. That was a joke.
Right.
I think I have this game. This series, I believe it has to go 6. But if it goes 6, I just feel like it's going to go 7. Just how the NBA, we saw a couple of years ago with the Raptors in the series in the bubble. That game 6, the NBA, I'm not saying they rigged games, but there are definitely some moments
fishy
in these game 6s that make you go, okay, well, the league, they create all this revenue off of game 7s. Game 7s are the most watched game they have in form of game they have out there, and they want to create more of those. And so you definitely, see those game 6s called a little bit differently than the rest of those games. I feel like if it goes 6, it's going to go 7. It's crazy that you said it earlier with Mike Breen, and he mentioned it. One of these two teams is going home in the first round. It's just going to be a mass disappointment for one of these teams when it comes to a game 6 or a game 7, when that moment comes, because it is coming later on down the line when one of the teams are just bounced in the first round. It's going to be a disappointing exit. And hopefully moving forward, the Celtics, they're farther away from that moment than the Nets right now. The Celtics have home court advantage. They have they have a game lead on the Nets. They only need 3 wins. I always think about it like this. They need 3 wins. The Nets need 4 wins moving forward, and we have more games on our home floor. We have the same amount of games on our home floor. But I have the series going at least 6, and in that regard, I think this will go 7.
What about if? See, here's the thing. I don't want to fumble around some scenarios here, but how, obviously I hate when people ask, oh, how important is this? Obviously freaking important. But how important is if the Celtics win game 2 and they go up 2-0 to Brooklyn? I mean, that would be major huge. We're sitting here saying, all right, split the home, whatever. No, what if Boston goes in and they go up 2-0? I mean, that would be, honestly, that'd be huge, absolutely huge, Seamus.
If that were to happen, which is completely plausible, of course, Celtics on their home floor, and we're going to see a different game too, in the sense that these last 2 games against the Nets, they're isolated games, right? They're happening, in the midst of teams playing other games. The Nets, they're coming off a game against the Cavs. And the Celtics, they're coming off a game against the Grizzlies. Same thing a month ago. They're in the midst of the regular season. Now, all of a sudden, you saw this team, whether it's the Celtics or the Nets, they saw this team they're facing the game before. And that's what makes the playoffs so interesting, is that you're seeing the same team many times over and over and over again. And it's just, how do you adjust, right? How do you adjust to a team moving forward? And if the Celtics come out and win game 2, they have to win a game in Brooklyn, because all of a sudden, if you win a game in Brooklyn after going up 2-0, you come back home for game 5 with a chance to close out the series.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, can you imagine the Garden 3-1 Celtics lead coming back to the Garden, a chance to kick Kyrie out of the playoffs,
right,
to kick the Brooklyn Nets out of the playoffs, who kicked us out of the playoffs in 5 games last year? I'm losing my voice here a little bit, but that would be a dream scenario, and it's a plausible one at that. I still think the series goes at least 6. I think the Nets have the ability to grab a game on our home floor, whether it's game 2 or game 5 or hopefully not game 7 moving forward. But all of these games, the Celtics, they have to go out and execute in game 2. And this is going to be, the home games are really, really important. If you just win all your home games as a home court advantage team, you're going to win the series. So the Celtics, they have to put an emphasis, of course, on winning at home, but not only that, afterwards, winning one game in Brooklyn. You got to win one game in Brooklyn. And of course, we all know too, if they win that one game in game 3, it's a wrap. 3-0 series lead. No one's ever come back from that in NBA history. This is a little bit different because there's Kyrie and Kevin Durant on the other side. But the Celtics, game 1, if you win game 1, there's a major opportunity in front of you 24/7. The series is not over by any means. Game 2 could be a completely different animal, will be a completely different animal. But the Celtics, after winning this game 1, they stole it. They stole it. They were down by 1 with 0.6 seconds left on the clock before Tatum made that shot. So the fact they stole this, there's a huge opportunity in front of them. They got to go out game by game, win game 2 first, and then focus, of course, on winning a game in Brooklyn.
And Brooklyn knows that. Brooklyn knows that, it came down to that last, these pricks. They just beat it, on the buzzer. That's funny you said that. That's a good way to put it. These guys stole the game because Tatum misses that shot. Brooklyn's up 1-0, 1-0, whatever you want to call it. But I said this earlier, and I said it in the podcast, this week's podcast, you got to jump on Brooklyn. You have to, you can't play, even if it's a 1-game lead, you can't play from behind. That's the thing, right? Not that the 1-game lead is comfortable, but it's a damn lot more comfortable than being down 1-0, than being down 0-1. So look, there's plenty of series left. This one, like I said, I don't see a way this doesn't go 6 or 7 games. Hey, I'm all for a good old 4 to 5 game series if the Celtics are on the winning end of that. But I don't see it happening. It could happen. Don't get me wrong. But Seamus, this was, like you said, great stolen game from the Boston Celtics. I'd like to see more of Daniel Tice next game, meaning him not in foul trouble, him not getting 3 or 4 personal fouls in the first half, for Christ's sakes.
The war on Tice continues. It's an everlasting war.
It's gonna happen. It was also good to see Rob at the game. Robert Williams was on the bench. If you didn't see, he's been practicing. I don't know if he's fully contact, whatever, just seeing him back on the even if it's just a practice floor, that's really relieving to see. And it sounds like that there is potential that he does come back if this series were to go 6 to 7 games. I don't want to talk about Ben Simmons. Why don't we just maybe show us that shirt to the folks at home? I see you got the Ben Simmons, not my rookie of the year shirt. He's still in contention for rookie of the year, even though he's a rookie 5 years ago and he hasn't played a game this season. He's still in the race for rookie of the year. Seamus, what if he does come back? Does that scare you? Does that make you tremble a little bit? Or because we know what Simmons is capable of, but also he hasn't played in nearly a calendar year. And on top of that, he hasn't played with this Brooklyn Nets team, not even once. So what's the level of concern as a Celtics fan, as an NBA fan, with Ben Simmons coming back?
Well, there are pros and cons to Ben Simmons coming back for both teams. And ultimately, if I had to make a prediction, I bet he doesn't come back this series, strictly because you already said it. He hasn't played a game for the Nets yet.
Right.
He'd be making his Brooklyn Nets debut in the playoffs. I mean, just think of how crazy that is. I mean, think back to, 2018. Gordon Hayward plays 6 minutes. Imagine if he would have came back in the playoffs later in the year. That would have been absolutely crazy. It would have thrown a wrench, as it did the next season. Actually, it threw a wrench into the entire thing. So you have that on the table for the Celtics in terms of he doesn't have much experience with that squad. And how much time do you want to spend during a playoff game trying to get him integrated into their system? Because ultimately, you're not experimenting in the playoffs, right? There's no moment of experimenting in the playoffs. You have to win every single minute, or you have to try to win every single minute of every single playoff game, because these are the best teams. This is the highest level of basketball on the planet of the earth. There's no time to experiment. You already had 82 games. So having him come in, that would just be a headache for Steve Nash and the Brooklyn Nets as a whole. And I almost wondered if it would not benefit them at all in terms of having that extra defender out there. But ultimately on offense, having that liability where he can't shoot, can't hit free throws, he's not going to take shots in the fourth quarter. I would say, overall, Ben Simmons, he'd give them an extra body to defend. That would be a positive for them. But just his overall, the fact that he hasn't played for them yet, I think that benefits the Celtics just a little bit more than it would benefit the Nets in terms of him actually coming back. But we'll have to see where it goes. He hasn't played this entire season. It feels like we've said it multiple times where, is he coming back? Where, it was the preseason. Right. He had the phone in the pocket at practice at Philly. We thought he might come back at one point. Then in Brooklyn, we thought he might play right away, might play that second. Remember, we played the Nets right after that trade happened where they just had no one on their roster. We thought maybe that could be his first game. And then all of a sudden, it's April. We're in the midst of the playoffs now.
Right.
We just started the playoffs, and he's still not back. So I don't really see him coming back just because of all the controversy surrounding him in total. And of course, too, he's playing the Boston Celtics. He's not playing the Toronto Raptors. He's not playing any of these other teams where their fans, no slack to the Toronto fans out there. But
no, they got us 2,000. They got us 2,000 views early in the season. We want the smoke for the numbers. We want the smoke.
Right. But Boston fans, they're nasty, right? And that's the way Boston fans love to carry themselves. And coming back under that environment, that's tough, especially when he's been touting himself this whole time as, hey, I have mental health issues and XYZ, and who knows if he actually does or not, or if he's just using that as a ploy. But if that really is the case, coming back to a Boston crowd or to a series where you're eventually going to have to face the Boston crowd, that's going to be pretty tough for Ben Simmons. So I really doubt that we do see him in the series.
And he'd totally be ruled out by now if they were playing Philly first round. There's no way in hell he would come back and play Philly. Imagine he does, and he just absolutely destroys them. It's like 10 threes a game. But Charles Barkley made a good point the other night. He goes, well, you figure if the Nets might be better off with Ben Simmons just maybe sitting this one out. Not only has he not played this season, let alone with the Brooklyn Nets, but also you figure, say he takes about 5 to 10, 15 shots in a game. Well, that's between 5, 10, 15 shots away from a Kevin Durant or a Kyrie Irving, who typically make those 10 to 15 shots over a Ben Simmons. So that was a very good point as well. You mainly bring him on for defensive purposes, I think, by now. But it's still up in the air with both Robert Williams and Ben Simmons. I think more so Ben Simmons, because we know Robert Williams is coming back at some time, either in this series or early in the Bucks or Bulls series. So we'll just have to kind of play the waiting game, I guess, with both of those guys.
Well, excuse my language, but these two situations are different because Robert Williams isn't a pussy.
Oh, my God. Well, I mean,
I'm sorry, okay. Ben Simmons. Strap him up, brother. Strap him up. He's He hasn't been injured all season. He's trying to say he has a back injury right now.
So that's my thing. So that's
Bullshit.
my thing. That's my thing. That kind of like, if it is a back thing, like it must be pretty a pretty freak back injury for him to sit out the whole season. No, I mean, there's
From sitting down too much on his couch over the season. I
yeah,
don't know.
I just don't understand it. And even even if it is a mental health thing, and I only put air quotes because I hope it's not, because I wouldn't wish bad mental health upon anybody, not anybody. But if it is, why can't what's holding him back from ramping up workouts or shooting a basketball? Is it mental health within the organization? Is it a mental health problem with physically playing the game of basketball? Can he not handle the pressure? It's going to be something, because if it's off the court, if it's something with friends or family, if it's something, any financial, like if it's any mental health problems like that, like that's different. But for him not practicing, for him not ramping up workouts, they said that he's just getting over 1-on-0 workouts, 1-on-0, meaning him versus the air. Me, like, it's not 1v1, it's him versus the imaginary player in front of him. Probably like one of those like punching bags that they hold up and hit them while they shoot. So like, as a Celtics fan, I know more. It doesn't even sound like people who cover the Nets know what the hell's going on with Ben Simmons.
No one knows.
Because I was gonna say, as a Celtics fan, I don't know, but maybe the Nets fans know. But from what I see, the Nets fans, reporters, not even damn Steve Nash. The poor guy gets asked, "What's up with Ben Simmons?" Look, I don't know where you guys are hearing these reports, but I haven't heard anything on Ben Simmons, and that's coming from the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. So it sounds like just a messy situation. Drummond, I guess, is a great dominant center for them down low, but Curry kind of had a rough game. Of course, I'm saying this, and he'll probably smoke us with 30 next game. But I mean, I don't know. That whole situation's so messy and sticky and disgusting and weird, and I don't understand it. It's confusing, but thankfully the Celtics don't have that problem anymore, Seamus, because we got rid of that person. We traded that person. Who did we trade him for? Oh shit. No, he left in free agency. I was thinking of Terry. We traded Terry Rozier for Kemba. But I just hope Boston comes out game 2, and I don't think they're gonna stomp them, because if anything, Brooklyn will probably come out and stomp us because they're pissed that we stole that game. But I want to see guys like Daniel Tice. I know hopefully doesn't get in foul trouble again. We know that's going to happen no matter what. But I want to see guys like Daniel Tice kind of see what he can do against this Brooklyn team. He had a few nice wide open shots tonight, just couldn't knock them down. I want Jaylen Brown to continue to be aggressive. Seamus, we were talking about that earlier. Marcus Smart to keep making the right pass. Even Jason Tatum, we'd like to see the ball in his hands a little bit more down the stretch in the clutch situations. But for the most part, he was making the right pass at the right times, and it was resulting in baskets. Celtics shot, if you missed it, Celtics shot 70% in the first half when on assists by Tatum, on passes by Tatum. So that's something you'd like to see carry over in game 2. And I think that the intensity, you'd love to see the intensity come out in game 2. Hopefully the refs let them play a little bit more. Maybe the refs were even trying to get their feet wet and trying to, figure out, okay, what can I call? What can I call? What should I call? What should I not call? Like you said, Seamus, maybe trying to find a little bit of consistency for game 2. But I think it's Wednesday, Seamus. So that's a 2-day break.
Tuesday or Wednesday, 1 to 2. I don't remember.
I think
this series is very stretched out at the beginning. Like game 3 is on Saturday. Next Saturday is game 3. That's an insane amount of space in between a game 1 and a game 3, nearly 6 days or almost a week from today. But you mentioned the intensity going forward in this series. There's going to be no lack of it whatsoever. New York crowd, Brooklyn crowd, and the Boston crowd. I mute the game when I do the halftime shows. I mute the game. The game's still on. It's over here beside me. And I unmuted the game after, I was done with everything. and it was just like the sound was just whew, like the sound of the crowd. I've done that a million times this season where, I unmute the game. We're just at home and there, you don't really notice a difference yet. Today I unmuted it and it was like, dang, this crowd is crazy. And it's not like, I had the TV up or anything. It was just that normal volume. Turn it up and the crowd, you could just hear it through the television screen. And I can't even imagine what it's like in real life. I mean, that place has to be just going nuts, especially when we play the Nets. And as I mentioned too, Brooklyn, they're going to be the same way. They're not quite as feisty as the Celtics crowd, but that Brooklyn crowd, for real, they'll be there and they'll be chanting millions of chants at us as well, just as we were chanting at Kyrie today. But this is going to be a fun series. This was a fun game one already. We saw daggers from Kyrie. We overcame that. And of course, we saw a game winner from Tatum at the end. So this was honestly, just looking back at it, this was probably one of the more entertaining playoff games that I've seen in the last, half decade, or we've seen in the last half decade. I think it ranks up there amongst some of the others for sure.
Well, definitely was not that Miami and Atlanta game earlier this morning. That game was just awful. Or earlier this afternoon, wherever you are.
Snooze fest.
It was a major snooze fest. There was a little bickerment between who was it? Jimmy Butler and Trae Young in like the first 2 minutes of the game, and other than that, it was just an absolute snooze fest. What was the final score? Like 120-90, something, 115-91, something outrageous like that. It wasn't even close.
I guess you could give Atlanta a little bit of leeway because they played that extra playing game against Cleveland, and that was a close game.
But if anything, if anything, they got fresh legs. Miami's been sitting for a week. Like,
it'll be the other way around because Miami has fresh legs. The only thing you'd be worried about is rhythm, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Going into the game.
They didn't have rhythm at all. The team that played didn't have rhythm at all.
Yeah, in terms of your legs being, up to par in that instance, the Hawks definitely had heavier legs in terms of, hey, they had to play Charlotte in that blowout, which
that was horrid as well. That was a snooze fest.
That was a snooze fest, but I'm not gonna lie. I had the under 235.5. Or sorry, it was 234.5.
That's right. You texted me.
They had 235. Like, what's going on here? The Hawks played down the stretch, so they played 2 games in a row like that were I had somewhat high intensity, especially that second game in Cleveland. So
that's awesome.
Atlanta, there's a little bit of leeway there, but it's embarrassing from them today.
You did
I can't
not
believe Atlanta. Get swept, Atlanta. Get out of here for ruining that over under.
You did not wait to text in the group chat. You were pissed.
It was the most. I've had a couple of bad beats over time. Don't get me wrong, but the game was over. It's like, stop shooting. Just dribble it out. Stop shooting, and they hit it by half a point.
Yeah, you were demoralized.
Half a point.
That's awesome.
And what actually makes it worse is I saw the line earlier in the day. I don't want to go on a little tangent about this, but I have to talk about it. I saw the line earlier in the day. It was 235.5, and I was like, all right, that's pretty high right there. And then it dropped down. I still later on was going, I'm still feeling the under for this game, even though it dropped a point. I know it's not in my favor now. And I took it, and it lost by half a point. Half a point. It happens. It's Vegas. It happens. So
I hope you didn't lose too much on that. You didn't lose too much on that, did you?
No.
You didn't make a Rob bet where he bets his college tuition on a preseason game. Look.
Yeah,
that was a shot at Rob.
That's the lesson Rob gave us. Don't bet on early season games at all. We just have no idea what's happening. 32-point loss to the Raptors. Loss in double overtime at MSG. Loss in overtime at Washington. None of these games even matter anymore, but that's the lesson.
He admitted that. Him and we were on a call the other night, and he told me, I'll never bet for the Celtics. Like the second half of the season or the first half of the season, he kept betting the Celtics, and he was like, you know what, I'm not
wrong half.
He had to go home quite a lot of college. He couldn't stay in his dorm a lot. He had to he couldn't pay the dorm tuition for that. But no,
all ramen noodles.
Yeah, all ramen noodles. He couldn't get water to put in the ramen noodles either. It was just stale ramen noodles. All right, these are all
Fry
jokes.
ramen noodles.
All jokes. We love Rob. Rob actually was at the game today. He hopped
Yeah,
on my
he
live. He
experienced
was,
that. That was crazy.
yeah. So that was Ian's going to game 2. Rob was at tonight's game. So yeah,
Shout out
Rob.
Ian too. He's out here working for the Woo Sox right now, and
Yeah,
he's got
I-
other stuff going on. But shout out to him because this was a pretty big game.
yeah. This was a pretty big game. I would have cried if I had to work. I would have threw a tangent if I had to, if I had to work. What time's Wednesday's game? Because I get out of work at 6. Is it 6?
I believe it's 7 o'clock on
Oh,
Wednesday
okay.
Eastern time. I
Okay.
don't know if it's Wednesday or Tuesday, but I know it's at 7 o'clock.
That's
sure.
perfect. No, I think it's Wednesday because it's like 2-day break. Like you said, some outrageous stretch schedule that you rarely see, if not ever see. But look, we'll be back here Wednesday night, regardless. At least Seamus and I will. For Celtics Postgame Live, the Celtics steal one from the Brooklyn Nets, 115-114, and open up this series on the right note. Al Horford was tonight's player spotlight, 20 and 15 from the 35-year-old center, 8 of 13 shooting. Seamus, thank you so much for coming on here once again for another episode of Celtics Postgame Live. Hey, they have a serious opportunity to gain a little bit of momentum before going on the road here, Seamus. So why don't you give your final thoughts and we'll get out of here.
Well, something underlying I always feel when we watch sports in general is sports is for entertainment, right? It's not, we're not making money off it unless, of course, we're betting money on it. But fans are ultimately not making money. The whole point is to entertain the fans, right?
Right.
And we could have played a first round series against the Bulls, swept them out of the building, 5 games, goodbye, or against the Raptors. Maybe that would have been a little bit tougher, but we still expect to win that series. The Celtics, yes, they have a harder path in front of them right now. Yet we saw today, what an exciting game, right? We're going to see exciting games pretty much every single playoff game out of the Celtics moving forward. Because you think of the path, if they do win this series against the Nets, you have 6 or 7 games against the Nets. You face Milwaukee most likely. And then in the conference finals, you're probably facing the Heat or the Sixers. And then if you make the finals, it's probably going to be either the Suns, Warriors, or Grizzlies. Whoever makes it out of the West, probably the Suns. But each and every playoff game is going to be highly, highly entertaining for the Celtics. And today, it was only the start. And I can't wait for more and more playoff basketball because this basketball right here, this is the real stuff. The regular season, it's all preparation for this moment right here in the postseason, in the playoffs when the lights are at their brightest. And right now, the lights are shining hard.
Shining hard they are. The Boston Celtics take game 1, a game where I expressed how crucial it was to open up the series. You never want to play from behind, especially when you look across the pond and you see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving staring you right into your eyes. We'll see you Wednesday for Celtics Postgame Live. Hopefully, Celtics can go up 2-0, but if not, they split it. No big deal either way. We'll be back here Wednesday night. I'm Justin Lowe. That's Seamus Arlingo. We will see you in a couple days.